Bienvenue à tout le monde dans cette nouvelle interview. Mon nouvel invité s'appelle Binais Begović. C'est un Monténégrin que je vais vous présenter tout de suite, un athlète de haut niveau qui a été dans le monde de la physicalité en tant que bodybuilder. Il a notamment, après développé toutes ses compétences en Suède, et enfin, un jour, il est parti aux États-Unis. Là-bas, il a découvert aussi toute une autre facette de sa personnalité à travers la spiritualité qui l'a aidé à progresser, à comprendre le pourquoi du comment. Et c'est après qu'il a réuni les deux pour combiner en fait cette stabilité, cette intuition et cette compréhension de lui et des autres. Et aujourd'hui, il est mentor, il est coach. Sa femme est connue, c'est une docteure, une spécialiste en reconstruction chirurgicale à Beverly Hills. Ensemble, ils éduquent une fille extraordinaire, talentueuse. Et donc, il est vraiment dans cette perspective d'aider chacun, ceux qui sont réellement motivés pour leurs besoins personnels, professionnels, et également pour aider les couples ainsi que les parents. Donc, je suis très honorée de l'avoir aujourd'hui. Cette interview va être en anglais et j'espère que vous continuerez à le suivre sur son Instagram et également sur son site internet pour plus d'informations. Alors, nous l'attendons avec impatience. Binais, I wanted to know, how old were you when you moved to Sweden? Was it just also because of the war? Was it your parents maybe found another job? There were some opportunities. How did you leave that part?
Yeah, so great question. So we moved to Sweden in 1998, and I was about 15, about to turn 16. I was 15 years old. And so the war in Kosovo had just started, which is kind of a pretty close to the border to Montenegro and Rajai, where I lived at the time. And the war in Bosnia in Croatia, it was kind of phasing out at the very end, but it was like, okay, just one war just ended, another war started, and we were kind of always in the middle of all these wars. It's like, where is this going to end? Is it ever going to
Mhm.
end? So it was really hard to grow up where you never really had a sense of security. It was never safe. Never felt that we can have a healthy childhood where the basics are met, which safety and security is one of the fundamental things. So it was really difficult. And at a time, I was actually on a national team in judo for
Right.
Serbia and Yugoslavia, and we had just come back from Moscow. I was on a national team representing Yugoslavia to compete in the Youth Olympics in '98, and we had just come back, and we got invited by the Judo Federation in Sweden to attend a summer camp in
Mhm.
judo in Lund, which is the south of Sweden. And so we got invited. Obviously, I was a minor at the time, so my dad has to come with me, and we got our visas. We got invited. It was kind of a self-sponsored trip. So we went there, and we just decided to stay and to seek asylum, political
Mhm.
asylum. So we stayed there. And so it was, I guess the original question, what was the motivation behind? It was a combination of everything. It was the war, it was the situation there, the political and economical and just psychological, just not being able to kind of get a grip of security that would made us actually leave and start a new life. So yeah, I we stayed. it was it was at the time one of the biggest changes of my life, going from
I can
everything that
imagine.
yeah, I was in high school, first year of high school. So, teenager, puberty kind of shaping my forming identity and all of that. So it was kind of critical time in my life where I had to start something new. So, all these changes are really great. I mean, that really made me a master of change and adaptability. So I learned language. I learned Swedish in about 4 months. I think I even
Wow.
got like an award, and I got some money for it. And it was in newspapers. I still got some cutout articles somewhere in my mom's house in Sweden. I learned, so I started in high school the same year. Um,
Was it
and I
difficult
finished.
for you? Were you how were you at that time? Very adaptable, or were you a little bit isolated, like a warrior? Like nobody can touch
Both.
you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they're both. I think isolation is always, it's not avoidable. I think the integration was there. I mean, I was integrated much faster than most people who would immigrate because of the sports, because
Mm-hmm.
of the school, and I kind of did not fall into that comfort zone of just hanging out with our own people, with our own countrymen, and you kind of that's comfortable. That's something you're familiar with. I kind of just, not that I intentionally did that, but I kind of ended up in a judo community with a lot of Swedish people, with a lot of locals. So I was really integrating really fast.
I understand.
But in a sense, like learning language and and being successful in those areas, whatever they are at the time, they were the cultural standards, school or sports or whatever. But obviously there was a side of me that was very isolated too, because it is a cultural shock. It is a lot of new things, and a lot of things to kind of um, learn and adopt. And obviously some of these things are easier, others are much difficult. So there's a conflict on the way. There's a lot of why me, why this. But I never really had a victim mentality. I always saw opportunities in all of it. So, and
Mm-hmm.
I was driven, and I was good at, if I have a if I stumble upon a difficulty or an obstacle, whether it's internal, like emotional, mental, or external, I would just power through it. I would not take enough for now. You just power. You use your willpower, you use your aggression, your dominance to kind of push through, and that kind of carried me for a very long time.
Yeah, that's
And
very interesting what you're saying.
yeah,
So maybe at that time you hadn't had the communication, these kind of skills that you have now, but you have the dominant side to fight, to go forward, to find a solution, but on your own way, right? It's interesting.
yeah. So at the time, my second nature, my natural way of doing is to be, that's this fire, this kind of warrior like energy where you just
Mhm.
set a goal and then you commit to it and you just go for it. You either accomplish it or you die. There is no other option. So there's not a lot of kind of a self-awareness, in a sense. You take your time to think and be methodical and be intentional. There wasn't time for it, and I think there was a part of my personality that I started out with. It was a side of me that was overly developed, and other side of myself that were underdeveloped. They came on later, which we're probably going to talk about it. But that was my dominant side, and that's what I knew the best. And that's what I started out with, in an environment like former Yugoslavia. You got to be quick, you got to be fast, you got to be strong, you got to be all these things, because that is a survival skill. And you don't have time to overthink. You don't have time to be methodical about these things. You just have to do it. So you find whatever it is that you got to accomplish, you set your mind to it, and you just go for it. There is no doubt. There is no time for doubt. There is no time for questioning or for strategic planning. It's more about, let's just do it. And if you don't know how to do it, you're not intimidated by it. You'll find a way as you go. And this is really great. It's all great until it's no longer great, because there are all these hidden obstacles that you discover on the way. But at the same time, it's easy to get started. It's easy to do things without overthinking. So I had that side of myself, which was early overdeveloped, and that was my default setting that I was running on. And but there is a dark side of it that it can really burn you out. It doesn't, which we'll talk about it later. But yeah, so that's how it started. And that's how we ended up in Sweden,
How
where
long did you stay there before moving out to United States? It's a large part of your life because
Sweden.
yes.
Oh, it's huge. I mean, I spent my best years there. Everything started there for me, and honestly, it was a great country. I think I was really welcomed and embraced by the country and by the system that was provided. It was incredible. I was able to start a new life. My family was able to start a new life. My brother lives there. He's married, and my parents still live there. My dad found a job, and he was an engineer. He was able to find a job within his field with very little language, and my mom was able to find a job. So we had a good start. It was tough in the beginning, but because we were going to be deported. We didn't get our visa the first time. And I was winning like Swedish championships in judo. I was the best student, all of that. They said, no, you guys are going to go back. And, so the newspapers wrote about it. It was chaos. Anyway, so that's the political side of it. It was really tough. But anyways, we ended up getting it. And, we could finally start our life after like 4 years or so. But it was tough, but it was a great country. So yeah, I started my life there. I started my company there, actually two companies. So I had everything going on for myself. I was in a really great path to accomplish everything I wanted. And, but that's not me. I want more, and I want something else. And my eyes and my mind is always, on something else. And so I stayed there until 24, 25.
Mhm,
That's when I
mhm.
that's when I got here to the States the first time. I was 25. Actually, I was 24 when I first got here. But then I went back. So I was kind of going back and forth for about 2 years, and then I finally stayed here.
Can you tell for us your journey, your darker journey? Well, I don't know if does being a bodybuilder was your darker journey or was a very successful. I know it was a successful journey, but how much you pushed your limits to your beliefs system, because that's something I want to know. And
Great question. So my bodybuilding journey is pretty incredible. Now, in
yeah.
retrospect, I can go back and kind of reflect on it in a healthy way and see both sides. When you're in it, you can only see what you see, but now I can see kind of full picture of what it was. And so how I started with bodybuilding is,
Mm,
yeah, so I started with bodybuilding at around age of 17 or 18. It was actually it was a part of my judo program, some weightlifting to get stronger. And when I went to the gym, I just loved, like, I would just pump these weights. I would take off my shirt, and I loved like the pump and the way it was looking, the way my body was shaping. And honestly, to realize early on that I love beauty, like beauty in a sense of natural harmony, beauty as an intuitive perception of the physical world. And in this case, it was my physical body. So to me, I was really drawn from an early age to the allure of taking my own body and shaping it into something until it becomes alive, that vision. And so I had a
Mm.
certain idea how I wanted my body to look like, and I wanted the harmony. I wanted to accomplish that. And this has, this has to do with my purpose that we'll talk about later. So I love to build things. I love to see them come to life, to the vision, and apply the strategy and the effort along the way to accomplish that vision. It's like really, it's fascinating to me. So for me, it was bodybuilding. It was in a great outlet, almost like an artistic expression, but also expression of aggression and all these various things. So it was an avenue for me that really helped me both express these values of beauty, of building something, and chasing these goals that I set for myself, this vision. And
Mm.
so yeah, I had that started, and I entered competitions in Sweden. I won Swedish championships for juniors. I think on my second attempt, and it started becoming more fun, more motivating. I got all this attention. I was in the magazines, and I always had this dream to go to Los Angeles, because this is like where, like, you kind of come here if you want to
Yes.
become a bodybuilder.
Mm.
It's like here, the Muscle Beach, the magazines, the culture is here. It's in Europe, it was almost kind of looked down upon. Like if you're a bodybuilder in Sweden, it's like people look down upon you. Like, why would you want to do that? Like, why would you want to build the muscles? Like, there's more to life, and there is, of course. But to me, that was like a great outlet for this expression of my values, and all that fire and energy that I had, and I could do something really fascinating with it. So to build and shape that body the way I wanted, it was so fulfilling for me at the time.
Mm.
And I came here to the States 2004 to compete. I competed here in Orange County. I won a contest. And I remember, like, people went crazy, like photographers, magazines. They put me in on the covers, and big covers and all of that. I was like, wow, what is going on? Like, it was a completely different perception. It was completely different, welcoming here compared to Europe, doing something that I loved at the time. So I went back to Europe, back to my everyday, and it was just like so depressing. Like, I want more of what I experienced. Like, I want
Mm.
that. I want that positivity. I want that, support that I had in America. I felt that, and it was really hard because I already had built my life in Sweden. So it's like, okay, now I'm going to start all over again. And I do that. Like, I'm the type of person who will burn everything behind me to start something new. I'm not afraid to do it.
Wow.
I'll do it over and over again. And I did that. I just kind of took off. I still had one foot, because I'm Swedish citizen, I'm American citizen. So I had my foot in Sweden still. So I never kind of let go fully. I would travel a lot. I was in the States for a couple of years, did, the whole bodybuilding thing. And so the dark side of it, I guess, I started getting really lonely, really isolated. It was just not feeling fulfilling for me anymore.
Because you
You
were
know,
completely dedicated to that art. For me, it's an art, but you unlocked. I mean, I don't know, how did you? It's like it's natural. Maybe you tell me if I'm wrong, but it's like it's natural for you to unlock your desires. I mean, you have to eat a certain amount of calories, of proteins, of fats, etc. And it's like, for you, was it easy? How were you able to put you in such a state of mind? Because this is how certainly now you can coach some people. Now when you're focused on someone, you can bring that person to its own goal. You have that kind of structure, that stability. You encore these structures. Is it natural for you to, when you set your goal, when you said, okay, now I have to eat like 2,000 calories, that's easy? Or was it a struggle? How your desires were on your
yeah,
path? I mean,
I
that's
love
incredible.
I love that question. That's why I was really excited about this interview, because I knew I knew you're gonna cover all the blind spots, and you're gonna ask all the right things, and that's very exciting for me because
Yes.
I yeah, I love this reflective state, and to go, do a deep dive and search for those answers. And so yes, no, to answer the question, that psychological structure was kind of already existing in me. And but certain conditions kind of have to be met.
Mhm.
And one of them is the desire for something that I have, the spark. When I say desire, the spark, something within me has to be awakened, whatever that is. Like external stimuli, whatever it is. And when I was a kid, I was watching these movies with Arnold Schwarzenegger or Stallone, it was all these my idols, and something about whatever doing, whatever presenting on the surface, I think that sparked something in me. So that spark was that's gotta be some external stimuli, which activates something internally with me, that desire that becomes so powerful that the practical things do not matter. Meaning that, in a sense, I need to learn the rules of the game. Like in this case, what is that I have to eat? What is that I have to do? What is the training? Like once I learn the process, once I learn the rules and I have the information, that is the hardest part for me to find out, to kind of distill what is right, what is the right information, what is the right um, path for me to take. And once I discover that, oh, I commit to it like a madman. Like
Wow.
if I have to eat nothing, just ice, I'll eat ice for days.
Mhm.
If it's just chicken breast or whatever it is that I have to do, I'll do it. And I have no problems with that. Like it doesn't come as a struggle. It comes as something sacred for me. Like I can do it.
But that's
Could I teach?
loyalty for me. That's loyalty.
You're right. It is a commitment.
That's
It is the loyalty.
incredible.
Yeah, and that is the highest virtue for me. Loyalty is committing to that, to what I believe in. That is that is the number one thing, and that's like really what has kind of taken me where I am today, and that's what kept me alive. So and I'll defend that. So whatever comes in the way, intercepting, I will shut it down. I will fight it. It's like it's in my way, and it's kind of almost like a tunnel vision, in a sense, which
Mhm.
has beauty in it, but also has some negative side. I think that it's hard for people around you to be around a person like that who is extremely focused and will not allow any distraction in the life, because that becomes a priority, almost like an obsession. So the positive side here is that you're committed and you're loyal to what you believe in. The negative side is that it can easily affect people around you. So that is there is a downside. So it does lead to some imbalance, of course, and it can also lead you down to a dark path, because in this case, bodybuilding is a great tool for to express the value of self-discipline, commitment, loyalty, all of those things. It's a great avenue for me, and to shape my body, which is the artistic side of the beauty. I love beauty, I love harmony, so that all was great. But the dark side of it is that whatever the standards were at the time were not realistic. So to be the best in the world, it's not going to be enough to take the path of nature. When you eat right, train out, there is this dark side of steroids, medication, all these various things that usually people don't speak about. And I kind of was in a place where I accomplished everything without it, and now I have to kind of take a step. Do I want to go down the dark path of using enhancers, and
Mhm.
and I don't even know what's on the other side. I don't even know if that guarantees you're going to get to a certain point. Like, what if you get bad stuff? What if you injure your body? What if you die? So there are all these questions that um, I kind of started asking myself, which is really strange. And I guess because it was so much on a table, that I was kind of forced to do more introspection about these things compared to anything before, which was not a threat to my sense of security, in a sense, to my sense of my existence. But when this came into the picture, a lot of questions started to internalize and cause a lot of doubt and suspicion.
So when you started to be suspicious about that art, that devotion you had for that, it's when you went to the other path, I will say the white path, from the dark to the white. Or
Oh no,
no,
no, not even
you had like,
close. I was far away. I was far
wow.
away from that path. I walked the dark path for a while.
Mm,
I was in America and I dwelled in darkness and um, I took steroids. I met some bad people. I was really my desire to accomplish the absolute pinnacle with my body became unhealthy.
mm,
Became very destructive in that sense. So, but life, has, or God, or universe has its ways. And when I was in my darkest time, actually, that's when I met my wife. I met her 2009, which is really strange because when I was in my one of my darkest places in my life, I also looked the strongest. I looked as someone who got it all figured out. I looked, confident and arrogant and powerful and strong and muscular, like all these things. I had nice things that I, made for myself. So you're looking at us from the outside, it's like this guy has everything and he's like he figured it out, but it was far away from it. So anyways, my wife, I met her, which obviously she wasn't my wife at the time, but we fell in love like crazy, like on a first date, and it was just one of those things, a soulmate alignment. Um, and she's the first woman that actually I respected her opinion. Um, Not that I didn't respect other women, it just her opinion really had so much power on me. So because of who she was, she was really a high, accomplished person, but also she came from a place of compassion. She wasn't
mm,
like judging my choices, but more from a place of care, more from a place of love, questioning some of my choices, which I really that made me respect that and kind of listen. So yeah, she was like, what is going on? Like, why would you take this? Why would you do this? Like, I'm really worried. She cried. She was very worried, concerned about me. So that really made me stop and pause more. But what it also meant, I was forced to face myself in a way that I wasn't being able to do before her. And because obviously I didn't want to make her sad and make her worried. And I valued her opinion. I mean, she was a medical doctor, she was a surgeon. And what she said, what she saw had it was valid. I had no way to kind of bypass that and ignore it because there is somebody here who went to Harvard, went to UCLA, has the education, has everything. Like she said these things, and it comes from a place of love and care because you can feel these things. If somebody's coming from a high horse telling you you're making a mistake, you fool, you're gonna tell them to F off. But to a person who cares and loves you, you can't do that. So you can't kind of bypass that. You have to kind of actually take some accountability. So I started taking accountability. And what that really meant is me kind of taking a new path in life, kind of going away from what was almost my entire identity, like my entire life, like being a
yes.
bodybuilder, being in magazines, having companies, supplements. My entire life was that. When I'm here, I'm faced now with a choice to take a different path, which I didn't know what the path was at the time. But I knew that, I needed to focus on my health, focus on my marriage. We got married just like a year later, a year after we met, we got married. So, and after that, I got my daughter. So that became my new path. So whatever kind of I was doing, whatever was needed to serve our family, whatever that meant, instead of kind of serving my own ego, So that transition, that is the beginning of my journey, meaning that you going from serving yourself, your desires, your ego, to serving something else. In this case, something else was my family, my wife, what we had. So I had to kind of step away from myself and focus on something else. This is very new. And that's when a lot of growth happened for me. Like a lot of growth started happening where, ego is always there, always pulling you, always asking you to do things, which, I was still doing it. So it was kind of a conflict between you doing what's the right thing and you doing what the ego wants to do. And you don't
Mhm.
walk away from the ego. In that early stage, I didn't have the power, the tools, the knowledge, insight, self-awareness, spirituality, all these tools that I have now. I was a beginner, I had nothing. So, you don't really know what you're doing. You kind of follow your heart, which the heart is my family, you know, but the ego is still there, very powerful, so you are kind of a split between these two worlds where you split your mind, your energy, everything you kind of split in half, where one serves the darkness and one serves the light, and the conflict is very brutal, very brutal.
Yes. It's like when you met your wife, you met also the feminine energy. You were very much like just the masculine, to do, to make, to build, you know. And then when you met her, but because you were so high in your success, you had to go down into these new stages of inner stages, with her. So I think, yes, it took you sometimes to go deeper and deeper, to breathe in, to feel you, to ask yourself. It's like she was that kind of voice, and she is certainly now, but always this voice, ask yourself, is it right? How are you feeling? Is it right? I think she helped you go inside and take another journey into that spiritual journey, right?
You know, in a sense, yes. But for me, it was more about trusting her. So it was more
Mm.
about trust. She was the first person I could trust in my life. Trust in a sense that, um, I can allow myself to be seen, as who I really was as a person when, my identity was gone. Like when my accomplishments no longer mattered, when you're kind of stripped of it, naked to your soul, when the person sees you and the person
Mm.
still loves you, that's trust. Like when a person sees your weakest moments, or not your highlights of life, and a person is still with you, that helps you grow. That helps you kind of um, tap into different parts of yourself. That strength that usually is kind of a hidden. That's kind of self-worth. Having the sense of like your worth as a person more than just accomplishments, meaning that accomplishments can be gone and this person is still going to be there. And
Yes.
that's new. That was new to me. That was new because all the girlfriends that I had before, or people I dated, or friends, or whatever it is, it was all based on performance. Like meaning that you produce, you create, you become something, and people are there. People show up. People are there. They love you. They cheer for you. They support you. But I never had somebody where when you don't have any of that, is the person still going to be there? So that was new to me. Like I could kind of go in that state of mind in a kind of relaxed where you don't have to be anything really. Like
Mm.
obviously ambitions is always there, but if you can allow yourself, like if she created a space for me where I can go into that space and kind of try to see who I am beyond, that was the beginning of that journey, meaning that I was able to go into this space where I felt safe and I felt secure and I trusted her in a sense that she's still going to be there for me even if I don't try to do all these things that I
Mhm.
thought I was, whatever they are, whether it's making money or building body or being in the magazines or whatever, whatever accomplishments there are. So, when I was kind of able to see that, when I started trusting her, like I was able to kind of breathe, I was able to kind of go into that space of
Of rest.
introspection.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was new for me. I never had that. And I was 26 years old. So imagine living for 26, just chasing things in life and never kind of taking a step back to, and I'm not saying other people wouldn't love me before her. Like I'm sure a lot of people would have loved me even if I had nothing, but to me, I was not able to see that. I was not able to connect to people in a sense where I can just allow myself to be myself.
Mm.
I was afraid that that's not enough. So I never had that before. And I think she was able to do it for me. She was able to, um, either intentionally or just naturally, she was able to be there for me so many times in my darkest hours where, so trust in this sense had to do with me kind of trusting her strength, trusting her ability that she can see past bullshit, she can see past the surface and she can actually see the person. And I was able to do that for her, which I didn't even know. It was only later that she was feeling the very same about me, when it comes to trust, that I was able to see her for who she was. So we kind of both were able to go into
All these
a,
spaces, yes.
yeah, yeah, this very safe
Mm.
place where we just had each other's back and we knew we are going to be there for each other no matter what. And that was new for her, that was new for me. So that's when healing started. That's when I started my spiritual journey, which at the time I didn't know it was spiritual, but it was very spiritual, in a sense that I was able to grow in so many different ways as a person, compared to just my growth prior to that was directly related to how much I produced, how much I accomplished, whatever the accomplishment was. So if I accomplish, then I'm worth something. If I don't accomplish, I'm worthless. And that was the notion. And that's what people live nowadays.
Yes.
Every day I see people, that's how they live. They feel if they create something, they build something, they have value. If they don't, they're nothing. And
Mm.
that's the whole system is built on. And it's like really scary. I was able to exit that mode at the age of 26 and start my healing journey. And now at age of 42, I can actually build the same way I was building in my 20s. I build now, but build from a place of intention, like from a place of not insecurity, not that I have to accomplish something so I'm liked, so I can like myself, right? So you win, whatever the win is, you win in life, and then people like cheer for you, tell you amazing, good job, and then you go back to yourself and say, now I can like myself because I won. But you only winner for a few minutes.
Yes.
Anything you win in your life, I won many contests, you win, you go up there, it only lasts a few minutes. And then you're no longer a winner. Somebody else comes after and wins. So that is not sustainable to maintain. I was never, there's no peace in that. There is no strength in it. It's a fleeting thing where you constantly have to win, accomplish in order for you to feel love, in order for you to feel a sense of self-worth. And that's an endless cycle, meaning that every time you accomplish something, you're almost mocked by your accomplishment, but the accomplishment kind of gives you the middle finger, say, haha, I tricked you, you got to do
Mm.
more of this, whatever it is. So I was able
Like a
to
shadow
exit.
fight, you know.
Yeah, constant.
Mm.
And I was able to exit that at the age of 26, which at the time I didn't know what it was. So so yeah, she was a big part of it. My family was a big part of it. And um, you know, but that was just the beginning. That was just the beginning. I had still not entered. That was the beginning of my growth, of my journey. Um, I still hadn't entered kind of the spirituality and all of that, which came kind of later in
So
life.
tell us about that. So what did you discover? I can imagine. So you were living back then in California, right? Yes. So in California, there's I mean, that's the place for spirituality, if I'm right. And what did you try or discover, gain knowledge? How did you enter in that field of spirituality?
So, when my healing started and, I had all these questions, I felt almost like I felt almost fooled by my success or my accomplishments, that everything I thought was the truth kind of turned out to be a lie. I almost felt tricked into something, but there's nobody to blame. So, I wanted to know on a deeper level, on a soulful level, um, my personal truth, in a sense, what it means. I wanted to know why I was here on earth. I wanted to know what I wanted to accomplish, and I wanted to know how I was going to do that.
Mhm.
And like when you have these fundamental questions about why am
Yes.
I here? Who am I? And what do I want to do with my life? And all of that. Because that fire, the desire of warrior is always there. It can never go away. Like I want to create, I want to build, I want to do something, but why am I here? Do I have a purpose, or is it all just nonsense? And the questions I asked, they didn't exist in the physical world. You cannot find these questions. Those questions are not in Google. Those questions are not in any other person. I just asked. So honestly, my journey was crazy. I started one day. I woke up and I just started searching for meaning of life. Like I went back in history as long as I can find a humanity, any traces of humanity of our civilization, whatever I can find, whatever I can find, I would read, I would search. Whether it's alchemy, the ancient origins, various teachings, ancient cultures, Egyptian, Eastern culture, everything. I read and I searched everywhere. And that search took me to different people. It took me to different teachers who are alive and dead, and different masters. And that path took me on this incredible journey of me. Luckily I was living in a place in LA where you meet so many interesting people, and suddenly, when you tap into that realm of spirituality, when you're a seeker, it's like so freaking magical and crazy. Now I can be logical about it, but at the time it was so illogical. I was scared. Like, who are these people entering my life? Like, you would meet random people at a coffee shop, and just random people will reach out to me on social media. Let's meet, let's do this, whatever you post, you're kind of putting this vibration out there, and that attracts this whole tribe of people who bring you answers, who reflect back, who help you grow. So that was my spiritual journey. I kind of entered that whole new world, which also brings with it a new set of darkness as well. But yeah, I entered that. I searched, and you know I even wrote a book that I published, but I took it back. I didn't want to publish it. It was more a self-reflection.
Mhm.
I think I was spending like years on Instagram, answering questions to people. That's how I was growing. I was reflecting back. I became super spiritual, like meditating. Oh, I learned about different religions. I think I went, and became part of every single religion. I mean, Buddhism and Christianity and Islam and Judaism and everything. I mean, I was in such an open mind state that whatever was in front of me, I'm not going to judge it. I'm going to embrace it. I want to see what that is. So various concepts, various religions, various spiritualities. I embraced it all, and I just learned from everything. And the more I was searching, the more I was looking, I discovered this connectivity, this connection between everything. I discovered that a common pattern that has been repetitive throughout history. I discovered this connection between the mind and the body and the soul. The same connection between the humanity. So everything kind of led back to myself, and realization how disconnected I was from my body, from my mind, and my soul disconnect from my body and from my mind. So for me, that journey of discovery was easy. I discovered my purpose. I discovered my values. I fixed all of those things. But then the struggle became how to integrate everything as a one seamless process, where the daily interaction, where when the body, the mind, and the soul are interconnected and just work as a one seamless piece, without you being too spiritual, or you being too intellectual, or you being too physical. Like this is a seamless process. It's integrated. It's an ecosystem that has to work together. And that's something I really needed to take time, which, for me, it has taken me like 5 years to do. Various tools, various, it's a process. And I feel like I'm finally in a place where I can do that, age of 42, with a lot of intentional work. So that's what spirituality was for me. And obviously I found my balance along the way. I know what works for me. I know what spiritual practices work, what don't work for me. I don't get into dogmatic, like, spiritual beliefs, like I believe this is what God created. Like, I can go there, and I have fun with these things, but I don't really dwell in those things. I think those concepts are very important. I think dogma and religion are very, very important. People find strength in it, people find peace in it. And I think those are amazing things, concept. For me personally, spiritual practice looks very different. Where I see value in a religion and any modern concept of spirituality, really. But to me, it's about practice. It's about daily. So for me, spirituality now, like right here, sitting here with you, it's the intention. So that's spirituality for me. It's like that intention. Like, I have to live fully aligned with my intention. So that's what spirituality. So you ask, the email, are you fulfilled? And I would say, so fulfillment for me is a continuous process. So it's not a goal, really. I don't feel I have accomplished that goal. It's more when I'm intentional about my life, whether it's this interview or, whatever comes after this. If I'm intentional and I'm connected while I'm doing that, that means that my body, my soul, and my mind are fully connected. They all work together to whatever that I'm immersed into. And that is the most spiritual I can be. Like,
Yes.
there is nothing else in this world that I've discovered to be more spiritual for me than to be fully intentional. That's how I connect to God. That's how I serve God, the higher power. Meaning that intention, that is my purpose. So living that fully, and of course, that's not possible. I mean, remember before we experienced difficulty with the technology. So
Yeah.
life interferes constantly, and every day I would say I'm 50% intentional with my life. The other 50 is just survival, like I have to do this and I have to do that. I have to fix all these things that break or whatever it is to, have to have 5 meetings. So I don't think we can be intentional 100% of the time, but I'm trying to be as much as I can, at least about my bigger goal visions, my life, my goals, things that matter. I'm really intentional about these things. This meeting is intentional, so I feel I'm living my purpose right now. So, I try to do as many of these things as possible. And what's really beautiful about it, I'm not connected to the outcome of that. I'm connected to the process. And when you don't have to live up to an outcome, then that's really fulfilling, because outcomes for me are not fulfilling. I think they're a celebration and they have a purpose, accomplishing certain things. They have to serve the process. The process never serves the outcome. That for me, it's very fulfilling. And I'm not saying
That's
that.
humility, in fact, what you're saying. It's like you're going into that movement, in fact, if I can translate what you feel, because I feel that serenity when we're speaking, and I see that your mind, your soul, your body is completely serene, completely here. You know what you want, and it's okay if there are external circumstances that are, making some noises but it's okay for you. You're accepting the movement, but you're here. And that stillness is what how can I say that? What you can bring also into your mentorship, into your coaching, this power of willing, like Bruce Lee was saying, like, clear your mind, clear your soul, clear your body, be one, be water, like, go, be fluent, be in the movement, don't stop, just continue. And I think for me, that's a protection of dissociation. Like, the mind is thinking like that, the body's wanting this, I want that. So there's too many parts, too many entities that are entering into our sphere, and the ego, is making also too much noises, and what you're experiencing is very spiritual. I mean, what you are today, because you can preach something, but I think that it's all about being. We can all say the same thing, there's theory, but there's practical. And the body cannot lie, and so people are reaching you because you are truly who you are.
Wow. Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I think what you're speaking about, I see it as authenticity. And authenticity to me is being able to embody that spirituality fully. And you're right. What I experienced throughout my spiritual journey is that many people separate spirituality from their existence. Like they're dedicated their time to spirituality, like whatever it is. Like I'm spiritual, my part-time. So for me, I try to kind of get away from that and be spiritual all the way. But in a sense, it's integrated. So I can have this, and the closest way for me to do that is by being intentional all the time. And like you said, yes, life, the noise comes in. So it's a matter of kind of knowing when to focus and when to flow. So focus is more about the control, like and knowing, okay, what things in life we can control, and having the wisdom to separate that, and when it's time to let go and kind of flow with things, become the water, like you said, like Bruce Lee said, become water. And I think both are really important. I think we need to have that focus, and we got to have that flow. And to me, I yes, I do have dedicated time for practice, meditation, and whatnot. But I like to be in that state as much as I can in my real life. I think that's when we can really serve humanity the best. Like we help the most when we can be in that state all the time, when we interact with people, when we're intentional, and then we can help others in a more healthy way. We don't help anybody when we're spiritual part-time. When we are, of course we help ourselves, which is great, but I think that the goal here is to fully integrate our soul, which to me it's that intention, into our life, into everything we do. And it's honestly, it's possible. It's possible, and it's not something that is in our way of accomplishing things. It's not. It's actually helping us. It's helping us have that peace in our process where we don't have. I personally don't have anxiety from pursuing my purpose, from pursuing. I still have very high ambitions, and if I told you would think I'm crazy. So my goals I have goals, and there's something else, but the pursuit, the process, the goals have to serve that process. So never the other way around. So most people are trying to kind of, not most, a lot of people kind of trick themselves where they say, well, process is more important than the goals. But then when you look at them and their actions, it doesn't seem that way, because all they do is chasing to come to a certain outcome. And that, you're entrapping yourself in the same vicious cycle where you're trying to accomplish something to feel that you won, and then you get the gratification from it, and then it reflects back when you feel temporarily relief that you are worth something. I want to have this feeling all the time. I want to wake up in the morning, I want to go to bed, I want to in the midday, I want to feel I'm important, I have something important to contribute. And you can only accomplish that by being intentional with your work. I have not found any other way. So if you do all this work your entire life, like spend 10 years, 15 years to build something just to accomplish something, and then hope that that accomplishment is going to give you a sense of importance, you being important as a person, honestly, that sucks. Because what if most people don't accomplish? And I talk to a lot of successful people. Don't get me wrong, people who are billionaires and people who have big companies and all kind of things, famous people. And I ask them, like, who have accomplished way more than me. Like, I'm not even close. So it's like they have done this, so I don't have to do it. Like, I asked them, when you accomplish all these things, did you feel the satisfaction? They said yes for a few minutes. That's it. And I was like, what's the next? Well, then you have to have a new goal. So the same people are, that's why people find the spiritual path, being more intentional, because this is not sustainable. Look, how much can you accomplish in this life? People already accomplish everything. People have been to the moon. People have been made billions of dollars. People become super famous. And like, how much more can we do that is going to beat that? And it's not, doesn't mean we are gonna, and are these people happy? I don't know. But I've talked to enough people to kind of have enough evidence for myself that what I'm trying you know, to teach about is, by also obviously becoming that. I'm becoming the process. I'm becoming the intention myself. And I think, people can sense that passion in it. So, you can argue with me like, oh, well, how do you know? Because have you been to the moon? Have you accomplished all these things? But I don't have to, because there's enough evidence supporting what I'm saying, that, and you can conduct any interviews you want. Are people happier when they accomplish big goals? They're not. They're not. Actually, there's this interview with super famous athlete. I'm not sure who it is, but I'm gonna find it, where they asked them, the person won I don't know how many competitions, and they asked them like, how much, what did you feel when you win? And they said fear. They said, what do you fear? When I climb up on the podium to receive my medal, I feel fear to lose what I have. So accomplishment, meaning that they don't want to get off the podium, because once they get off, they know somebody else is going to fight for the first place. So accomplishment really leads just to fear and more anxiety. I think accomplishment is great, but it has to come from the intention. It cannot come from the security. So when you live intentionally, when you fully, and then you accomplish these goals become kind of a milestone, a celebration of the intention, and then it continues. It's not a high rush, it's not a high, it's not a low, it's a continuous movement. It's like a flow movement where you have kind of just like time. We have 24 hours, so we have certain milestones in our life. So life is not just like one blurry line. We actually have times, we have years, and I think goals are the same thing here, kind of measure of something.
And how do you set your intentions, for example, on a daily basis? How do you do that? Or how do you say to people, or maybe depends, of course, of who is reaching you, of course, yes.
Yeah. So I don't necessarily set my intention daily. I think I'm so connected to it that I don't have to, but I do have to reconnect to it at times when I get flooded, when I get super stressed out, when I get overwhelmed, when I get pulled with 100 different things. I have to retreat to myself, and I have to connect to what is my intention. Why am I here? Whatever it is, if I feel that I'm not my best in any situation, and of course there are levels. If I'm super overwhelmed, whatever the overwhelming feelings are, fear or anxiety or stress or whatever it is, these negative emotions, if I feel too much of it, I know I'm disconnected from my intention, and I have to retreat back, and I have to reconnect to it, to recalibrate, like, and ask these questions. Why am I doing this? What is the reason? And how am I going to get there? So if I reconnect and answer these three questions, then I can find my way back to my home, to my safe place, which is the intention. And then I can re-engage with a situation or with people. And I don't have to do it daily, but it also depends on circumstances. Some circumstances are tougher that require me to do it multiple times a day. If I have a good week, everything is flowing smoothly. I don't have to. Things that life is good, circumstances are great. But I don't really have to do it daily. Most of the day I'll just get up, I'll do my workout, I'll go about my day. I'm intentional. I know, it's my kind of my routine, right? So I don't have to be intentional with my routine as much. But when I engage with bigger situation, when it's more things are at stake, then I may have to kind of remind myself and reconnect to the intention more often. But honestly, this is very important. That's what a spiritual journey, and what I do with my coaching and with clients is the biggest part of this process is being able to connect to your intention, like knowing
Mm,
your purpose, knowing your values, knowing your goals. And that is not easy. You can come up with something noble, say, oh, my purpose is to whatever, be save the world. That's great. But it may not be the truth. So it may or may not be the truth. So connecting to intention is not about something sounding good. It's actually the honest truth of who you are meant to be. And that takes time. For me, that took years. For me, that took 7 or 8 years to do that. From the time I was intentional, when I start asking questions who I am, and every time I thought I got it, this is who I am, there was something that would come and remind me, no, this is not,
mhm.
and so you have a choice to adopt something that is not real, or you have to dig deeper to find the truth. So the biggest part of this process is really coming into their realization, and connecting to your purpose, to your intention and your values is not one of those things where you're super cheerful about. It's not something like, aha, I got it now. You kind of walk into it. You see it written on the wall, and you're like, wow, this is it. Like this is crazy. This is it. It's like one of those things that has been in front of you all this time. It's in a plain sight, and you have been living it in one way or another, but it's a more inconsistent. It's more, maybe be partially. It's not fully embraced. So this is nothing you create along the way. It's something it's already there, and it's something you have to find whatever that search requires. It's different for different people. So that's the toughest part. But reconnecting to that intention, that purpose, is a very easy process. You only need a few minutes a day, and you're going to be back on track. And that's just maintenance later. But discovering that it's the toughest part, at least for me, you know.
Would you say that the heart has its own intentions and the mind has other intentions, and that these are two different spaces and the emotion, you know?
Oh, yes, they are. Yes and no. But the mind is going to adjust.
Yeah,
If you find,
exactly.
yeah,
Mm,
the mind is an engine, and the mind is a beautiful thing. The mind, when it's when you know how to control it and to reel it in, the mind is going to follow. The mind is going to bend, and I've seen it in myself. The mind is going to bend for the truth, and the heart is the truth. But the
yes.
mind will go against you if the mind knows that you are not authentic. If you're not real about your intentions and your truth, the mind is not going to listen. But the mind is going to try to master you. The mind is going to become a slave only when you're pure in your heart and you're authentic. The mind is going to go down on its knee and bow down and follow. The mind, and I've seen it in myself, but it's not going to go. It's not going to go your way until you find your truth. The mind is its engine. It's going to do what it's going to do. And the mind is going to be like, okay, I'm going to follow my own path, my own ego. If you don't know, if you don't know what you're doing, like why would,
I'll say, yeah.
yeah, and it's by all right, the mind should be doing what it's supposed to do, unless you find that truth in your heart. And if you do, the mind will start collaborating with you. And I don't have that conflict. I mean, obviously, I have bad days. I'm not perfect. I have bad days sometimes. I still burn bridges. I still have, really, really bad days where, I'm not intentional all the time. I mean, I guess I'm intentional maybe 7 times out of 10, but which is really great, But before I was intentional maybe only 1 time out of 10, and then I was 2 times, and then 5 times. Now I would say I'm like intentional 7 times, and I still burn some bridges, and I will mess up, and all of those things are fine. I think it's more about the consistency and
Yes.
being able to connect It's a very good question. I never had this intention in my life to become, some sort of a leader, of a coach. And, this is a part of my really my purpose. When I was going into the deep reflective state of searching for myself, these things were revealed for myself. And I have, um, I've gone back and forth a lot of times, what avenue, what concept I want to choose to be able to exercise to pursue my purpose, in this case is, I see this as a leadership, as mentorship, it's kind of leadership is one-on-one, but I also like to build things, I like to
Mhm.
build. Like I said before, in the bodybuilding, so anything that has to do with building stuff, I love to build. So leadership and building, those two things, that's when I feel fulfilled, and I have to keep doing those things every day. So, I was the reason why I chose this format of it just kind of made a lot of sense to me.
Mm.
And it's also an accountability system for me. It's you know, it's uh it's something I can wake up every day and I can hold myself accountable, you know, by being a life coach. Because for me, the number one thing is being authentic. It's being consistent with being able to pursue that intention daily. And when if I choose any other concept out there, it's easy for me to kind of fall back into this default where, you can fool the world, you can fool anybody, but you cannot fool yourself. Here I can't fool myself. If I don't know something, it means that I'm teaching about something I haven't lived.
Mm.
So in this case, if I haven't lived something, I'm not going to talk about it. I may talk about it as an intellectual assertion. I find something interesting and I'll talk about it, but I'm not teaching about it. So it's more of a subject to discussion. So things that I teach are things that I have been internalized and I have lived them, and I have, you know, I have been able to process them through my being. And I feel it doesn't come from a place where, I gather this information about it and now I'm going to teach about it. It's actually I've lived it. So my approach is really it's real life experiences.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying that any other concept is wrong. I think there's so many great concepts. I love psychology, psychiatry, all these things. And they're great. There are patterns to follow and they're helpful tools. They've helped me a lot. I've gone through the process. I've been in therapy myself. And so there's various concepts that are really incredible. So you don't really have to live everything in order to help people. I think that's great. It's just that in my case, it's important to me. Like I wanted to have a different approach. Like I want to be good at it. And for me, the only way to be good at this is to live it first and then teach second. And that is really inspiring for me. Like that is it's kind of self-motivating because we can sit here for days and I can talk about this. Um, because it just comes from that lived experience and I
Yes.
can I
Mm.
can die for it. I can extract value from it and then you as an observer, as a receiver, can decide what of this makes sense to you. But I can tell you that even though we're so different as humans, like meaning the contents of our mind, the experiences you live, the information is different, how we gathered, but the essence is the same for everyone.
Yes, it
Like
is.
the essence is the same. Like we go through the same phases of our life. We have the same emotional experiences, no matter who we are, rich or poor, or what gender, where we live. The contents are different, but the essence is the same. So it is a kind of when they say universal truth, what really that is that essence of humanity, how that's what really connects us. So even though experiences may be different, the essence of the human mind, the human soul, the journey is the same. And I'm able to connect to that. I'm able to tap into it. So um really puts me in a great situation to be able to to speak to a broader audience and, to connect to so many different people, different, social statuses and backgrounds. And I really have no problem with that. And I'll find something common with them, because I won't go for the connection of experience or same interest. I will go for the connection of that emotional experience, because somewhere along the way, somebody has experienced sadness and happiness and joy and fear and, all these various range of emotions or depression or whatever it is. So for me, I use vulnerability. If you are,
Yes.
yeah, if you're vulnerable, which I am starting to be more of that, to show people that I have experienced that, then they trust you. They will open up, because they don't feel alone. Like you can be there with them in that experience. And that is what empathy is, right? You cannot have empathy without being vulnerable, meaning that you can have sympathy, you can feel bad for people, but empathy is not simple. Empathy is different, as you know. It's something that you have to live that, maybe not as an experience, but as an emotional experience. Now you have to live. You have to be, let's say you had a heartbreak. So who broke your heart doesn't matter, but a heartbreak is a heartbreak. So if you experience that, then you can have empathy for a person. But if you never experience a heartbreak, how are you going to have empathy? You don't know what the pain is. They're just an example, which, heartbreak is something we all experience at an early age. So it's kind of easiest to connect to. Uh, so that is what I try to connect with. And then the alchemical process, it starts there. It's really what it's about, and but you gotta have that ability to be vulnerable. And for me, vulnerability is my go-to tool to be able to connect to people on that deeper level. And that's a way to bypass myself, the ego. And vulnerability works only if you have healed from it, if you heal from past experiences. Because if you haven't, the chances are big that you still are bleeding about these things, and you can't really attempt to help somebody when you still have pain in you. You can be as a comfort as a friend, but if you want to guide somebody, the chances are big that if you try to guide people with vulnerability and you still have pain and hurt from before, you are going to be biased. And when you're biased, you're going to mislead people. You're going to take them down the path that is not supposed to be for them, you know. So it is work. I mean, people are, social media, everybody shares experiences. But I can tell right away when people are talking from from a place of pain, or talking from a place of vulnerability. And these two things are so different. They're very similar. Like they're so similar, right? Because you open up, you're in pain and you talk about these things. That's pain. That's not vulnerability. But you can go back and reflect on your experience, and you can go in the state of mind where you have experienced that. You can walk back, but you have the strength, you have healed, you don't bleed, you're not going to attract all these sharks, with the blood, which is really bad energy within yourself. And when you attract this bad energy, then you're going to mislead people, you know. So vulnerability um and and um and pain are very, very similar, but um still very different.
In that process of golden self, so you bring people to 9 different stages, right? Did you find them very fluently? It was like you were following your intuition and it came right away, and you knew how to put these kind of stages, to go deep in themselves. That's fantastic.
Yeah, so I am big on systems. I am big on finding process. It kind of take something chaotic and put it into something that makes sense. And so the process of golden self, what we talked about, what really the essence of that golden self is, you know, trying to distill through all that chaos of the mind and life to find that deeper meaning, to find the intention, the purpose, why we're here. So
Mhm.
I wanted to find a way how I can structure that, because most of us, we're logical beings. You can be all spiritual you want, but the mind is very strong. And at the end of the day, you have to have a logical way of explaining even your spiritual journey, which is kind of at a first glance, it may feel like it's a counterintuitive, but really it's not. I think even the soul itself can benefit from having some sort of a system and process in place. So I really, I wanted to find, I want to satisfy that curiosity of how do we measure success of a spiritual journey? How do we put it in a logical system like steps? Because most people asked me before, I had beta testers, I would talk to people that I value their opinion. I said, what if I want you to bring on this journey of self-discovery? And they asked me like, well, give me some steps. I need steps. I need to know where
Mhm.
I am. So I would be challenged like that. I would be challenged. Like, I want to know, like, I have a friend who is a former CEO. I said, I need to measure. I need to see that my success is being measured. I don't care what you give it to me, my purpose, whatever it is. I said, okay, that's a valid point. Like, so for me, these challenges challenge me to grow and find various ways how we can measure our success on our journey. So it's not just a delusion, but actually something concrete, but also having these steps in the process of, the alchemical process of that, path to the golden self, what those things are. And, I've kind of outlined those things, and I think that can be very helpful for a person. Unfortunately, I didn't have those when I started out.
Mhm.
So, and maybe that's why it took longer for me, because I was so disoriented. I didn't know where I was. Most of these things I did on my own, and people were helping me, but there is not really a structural way of how, the spiritual process can be conducted, and to kind of have a map to identify where in this process I'm at. So I don't know if you took a look at those. I have these steps, which, they're not really in a chronicle order, but more, you know, they are there, to recognize yourself where you are.
Mhm.
For example, the number one is dismantling limitation. And this is a process of that mental decluttering, which involves to identify and deconstruct these barriers like ego, self-doubt, and all these habits that are unhelpful. And we talked about it before when I met my wife, how I was serving the ego, and I had all this noise, and I was doing all these things, all these habits that were kind of unhelpful. That was kind of the first phase for me. And now how you go about is different. For me, that started with my wife, but how she helped me heal. But for other person, maybe who is not married, is going to be looking a different way. So I think the process is very similar, but how we go about this process is very, very different from a person to a person. It can be so different, because like I said before, the essence is the same, but the contents of our mind and our experiences is so different. So I'm not defining the contents of it, but more the process itself, and, I don't know if you want me to kind of go through all of them, or for those who are interested, this is on my website. There are 9 stages. The second stage is the awakening the authenticity. Next is acquiring clarity of the mind. Then we
Mhm.
have self-acceptance. Number 5 is the rebirth and renewal. Number 6 is cultivating consistency. Now, this comes with the discipline. Attaining wholeness. Number 7, which is really connecting, the mind, the body, and the soul. Number 8 is a conscious self-leadership. Now, this is like all applying it into action, like living it, being committed to it, being loyal to what you've learned, to the process, to their intention, and recalibrating. And lastly, that becoming the golden self, which is really the the attainment, kind of
Mhm.
satisfying that ego. Like, you got to know that you've attained that, the golden self, the best version of yourself. How do you attain, that holistic embodiment of your most authentic, most purposeful version of yourself? And the stage actually can be measured, and I have a way to measure it. So So yeah, that's in short.
That's beautiful. You should write a book, Binais.
It's happening. I actually am writing it.
Really?
Yeah. I'm
Oh,
actually
you
in final
should.
stages. You're the first person to actually know this. I mean, my wife knows and my daughter knows, but I
Well,
haven't
I'm happy.
yeah.
Thank you. I'm
And he
happy because
has
I see,
yeah.
I feel it. It's so strong, it's so um a book is really helpful also for people, when we are in the train, in the subway, just to take the book anyway, I mean, anywhere, I don't know, the first stages, the ninth, and go deep into that self-reflection. It's so helpful, it's like a book, not just to read one time. No, it's a lifetime book. I mean, this is how
Wow.
I feel it.
Thank you for that confirmation because I have struggled like for a while to find the proper outlet, a venue, how I'm going to reach more people in a because people nowadays they're so distracted with social media. Nobody wants to listen more than 1 minute, and whatever you so this is really in depth. Like you have to dedicate hours and process. So I've kind of been struggling, like, how do I get people to into that state of mind where they realize the importance of it and how to get them engaged? And I think, I mean, I've been, social media is a great tool, but it's a super distracting tool. I don't think it's a great tool for growth, honestly. I mean, I'm kind
No,
of going back in social media, activating and posting and all that, but it's super distracting environment. And I think you're right. I think book is a good approach here. I think that can help more people and holding something tangible and having
exactly.
that,
Yes.
yeah, to kind of block out a distraction. I agree.
Yes, the social media, I think, for me also is very draining. We're coming, we want to say something, but then we are seeing some other information. But the book is so powerful, and I love books. So
Thank you.
yes, I
Yeah.
think it's
No, yeah, I am. I am. I'm refining it a lot. I think it's an amazing book. I love it. I think it's great. But again, my opinion wouldn't matter. Like, I really want this to be a helpful tool. And I want to have, actually, you could be my better reader. Like, you could help me read it and give me some insight,
I would love to. And if you want
something,
to translate
something
it,
to change.
you
Yeah.
should translate it in French, in every languages.
Wow. That's great. I haven't decided if I'm going to go with self-publishing or go with a publishing house. I haven't decided that yet. I mean, I love the freedom of just writing whatever I want and not having restrictions. But it has the beauty
But
of
it's
going,
good when someone is
yeah,
helping you, publishing it, and helping you in any way, to
to
to go
reach more
for it,
people.
and
Yeah,
yes, to reach more people, because we don't know everything. you know
true. Very true.
Remember that we don't know nothing, and yes, it's a place to remember. And I think it's nice because I'm like very entrepreneur, being by myself, but it's nice to have some people around us, to do collaboration and to learn from these people who really want to help us. So it's, yes, you should write it and publish it. That's what I see.
No,
I'm
I
very
thank you.
humble when I'm saying that, but
Hmm?
I think it's so deep, that what you're talking to, and that's good for the coaching, but also if people can read it and have it in their hands, it's a process. It's just not reading, it's feeling it, and taking their time to understand things.
I think you're right. And, thank you for confirming that. I appreciate that because some days I kind of get demotivated. I kind of leave it and not, you know, I think it's 80% done, probably, maybe even 90. I'm filling in some um more of my own experiences because I think people can relate to it. Even the
Mm-hmm.
9 stages, that I've listed now, I think it's when I connect into my own experiences and kind of can relate to those, I think people can relate better to those. like how it's like, it's coming to life, you know. So yeah, yes, thank you
Yeah,
for that.
because you're speaking to everybody. You're speaking to athletes, you're speaking to spouses, to parents, to, I mean, to us. So it has
Yes,
to be
thank you.
simple and also very profound to make that change, you know, to make, when you were saying to enter in that heart zone and to feel that stillness. This is why I wanted so much to have you in that podcast, because this is the balance. This is your journey, but this is our journey, in fact.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, so you're saying that you can recognize yourself in a journey. You can
Of
see it
course.
like,
Oh, so
wow.
much. Because, of course, we have empathy, and your struggles is our struggles, you know? And so then the process of, I will say, in a way, also psychotherapy can enter, you know, but it's more autonomous. So that's why a coaching is completely different. It's really like alive and it's great. Uh, but the book is, I mean, that's for me very symbolic, very symbolic.
Hmm. I think you're right. I think it is I think it will help people also kind of identify everything and be able to follow me easier, even in social media, because a lot of things I like when I speak bits of it, parts of it, it's very dense, it's very heavy. And
Oh, yes, it is. Yes.
but it's really not. Like once you at a first glance, it's heavy, but I think once you connect to it, to the essence of it, and I think book can be kind of a good entry place where whoever reads it will be able to connect and tune in, which, you know, it's going to be easier for me to go on social media and post kind of parts of, you know, teachings. You know, it can be a few minutes here and there. Um, because if you read a book, then you will kind of know where you are and you will know what this is about. So it's going to give me a better opening point to capture, you know, the attention of the viewer in a more productive way with less distraction. Um,
Exactly. And more question
yeah,
will be asked and more people
yeah,
will reach you. Yes. Yes.
I agree. I agree. No, I think that's a great point. So yeah, you just confirmed for me that that's what's needed. I mean, I was working on it for quite some time, and I'm feeling with, you know, things every day, things that I discover. In a sense, you know, for me it's clear, but I want to make sure that this is going to help people. And so for me, the book is not about, it's not an accomplishment. It's more, I really want to make sure it's going to be helpful, you know. And so I want it to become a tool that people can really use to help them on their journey, rather than just me creating a good product because I think it's a great product. Like I don't, it's obviously I want that to be a great product, but I want to make sure it's helpful. So, you know, so
Well, it's
you
going to
say,
be
yeah,
because you are living your fulfilled life. So it is going to be, you know, you're the key. So when you're writing, you're spreading that message. I mean, it's more than words, it's energy, it's, you know.
yeah. Sorry. What I meant, I want it to be relatable. Like I want it to be helpful in a sense that it's people can relate to it. And I think the best way, I think the missing part of is me infusing my own experiences in it fully. And you know, before I kind of thought maybe my experiences are going to be kind of in the way, you know, like it's going to be a distraction. Like if I talk about my life too much, it's like going to be more of a distraction than helpful, you know. But I think after this, you know, this interview today, I think it can actually be helpful to speak more about these experiences and connect them with, you know, the method and the steps and everything else that I talk about, because it is a very nice, it's a structured format, and It's very clear and organized, but I think the missing part is the experiences that I have can be infused for sure.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, Binais. The
It's
energy
great.
is so cool, so I'm very honored that you share your experience, and that's just a summary, of course. And I can wait for you to continue to spread your message because it's very authentic, as you were saying, and you have so much to give. You're a very generous person. Very, very, very. Maybe that's the Balkan history.
I think
People
you're
are very
right. I
generous.
I
Oh,
think you're
yes.
right. I mean, when I took my family down there, and they never met my family. We met relatives, and they all come with this food and with everything, and they embrace,
Mhm.
and they embrace you like they've known you for forever, and that's very unique for our part. I mean, are there other countries like that? But our the Balkans is so amazing, and my wife and my daughter told me like we didn't need like time to get to know them or anything, but we were right away family. We were right away embraced. They were giving. So I think you're right. I think that part of myself is probably from down there, and I love to give. I think it's a very important part of my journey. It's an important part of my culture. So you're completely right. I think that's really the giving part is probably from the Balkans for sure.
And from the heart, it's unconditional love for humanity, and you're there. So thank you so much. Yes.
Oh, thank you. This is really incredible. I knew that I'm gonna enjoy this because you see the blind spots and you're gonna ask the right things that it's going to make me you know really dig deep for these answers, and I love to go into that reflective place like that. And I don't get to do it every day. I reflect for myself, but
Mhm.
to kind of get the full picture, because usually the reflections are kind of parts, you know, parts of the
Yes.
light, but this was like a full, like from the
Well, I
ground.
hope so. But it
Yeah,
was a summary for me. If I could, I will ask so much many other questions, but yes,
we can do follow up when
anytime.
I launch my book, and we can do another one, and you can be,
Oh,
you
yes, I would love to read it
yeah, and you
and
can do more
to
of
take.
a deeper, yeah, more specific like interview where you maybe
Yes,
target some areas more.
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
for
I'm
sure.
in. I'm in.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you. Be nice. Thank you for
Thank
your
you,
time.
Alexandra. I really appreciate it.